and on earth peace among men. Abraham Lincoln, in an important speech, quoted Jesus Christ when he said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand." While Lincoln was speaking about this country in particular, Jesus' message is universal. Jesus taught a message of one house, God's house, and of one family, the family of humankind. There are many challenges facing our world today. A great many of these cannot be overcome by one nation alone, but they can all be overcome as our one household of faith pulls together in peace. The movement of universal peace cannot be legislated, cannot be won militarily or brought about by threats of force. Universal peace begins with love in your heart and my heart. In the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus said, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God." We can make peace by following the example of the Prince of Peace in loving our fellow inhabitants of earth. We can make a beginning in bringing about peace by starting with the little things. We can be peacemakers at home in family gatherings by resolving to remain calm and gracious. We can share love at worship services by lending a helping hand and by reaching out to visitors. We can be a real blessing on the highways by being tolerant and helpful toward others who are just as busy as we are. It may seem like too big a challenge to bring peace to the whole world, but Jesus has shown that just one person who will choose to be peaceful, kind, generous, and loving in all situations can make a difference. You and I can choose to make a difference. In celebrating this Christmas, let us honor the birth of Jesus Christ by living in peace and love with each other.
Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God.
Here we receive an invaluable practical lesson in the art of prayer, and prayer is our only means of communion with God. As a matter of fact, prayer is the only real action in the full sense of the word, because prayer is the only thing that changes one's character. A change in character or a change in soul is a real change. When that kind of change takes place, you become a different person, and therefore for the rest of your life, you think and act in a different way. Jesus referred to this change as being born again. In other words, you become a different person. The amount of the difference may be only very slight for each time that you pray. Nevertheless, the change is there, for you cannot pray without making yourself different in some degree. The word prayer should be understood as including any form of communion or attempted communion with God, whether vocal or purely mental.
In the absence of prayer, all that you can do is to express the character that you have in whatever circumstances you find yourself. Prayer changes your character, making a new reaction possible.
The great essential for success in prayer, for obtaining that sense of the presence of God, which is the secret of healing oneself and others too, of obtaining inspiration, which is the breath of the soul, of acquiring spiritual development. The great essential for success in prayer is that we first attain some degree of true peace of mind. This true interior soul peace was known to the mystics as serenity, and serenity is the grand passport to the presence of God. The sea as smooth as glass that is round about the great white throne. However, we can overcome even the most serious difficulties by prayer without having any serenity at all. In fact, the greater the trouble we face, the less serenity we are able to have. And the serenity itself is only to be had by prayer, and by the forgiving of others, and of oneself. So prayer is always the answer. But serenity is necessary for spiritual progress, and it is serenity, that fundamental tranquility of soul, the peace that passes all human understanding.
Experience the peace of God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called the children of God.
The peacemakers spoken of in this beatitude are those who make or bring about this true peace or serenity in their own souls. For it is they who surmount limitation and become actual and not merely potentially the children of God. This condition of mind is the objective of Jesus in all his instructions. Peace I leave with you, my peace I gave unto you. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. To be a peacemaker, in the usual sense of settling the quarrels of other people, is, as all practical people know, an excessively difficult role to fill. By interfering in other people's strife, it's ever so much easier to make things worse than to make them better. Personal opinion is almost certain to enter into our efforts, and personal opinion is very likely to be wrong. Once we incorporate the power of prayer, many quarrels heal in the true way, probably without speaking at all. The silent thought of the all-power of love and wisdom will cause any trouble to melt away.
What do you do when you see all the brethren at the fellowship? Don't you bless them? Yes, you bless them. And what do you do when you share the word with the saints? Don't you bless them? Don't you bless them? Yes, you bless them. And what do you do to the people that you work with?
Start by grounding us with the prayer of faith, the old prayer by Hannah More Cohouse. This was a favorite of Myrtle Fillmore. And if you know it, follow along with me as well. God is my help in every need. God does my every hunger feed. God walks beside me, guides my way through every moment of the day. I now am wise, I now am true, patient, kind, and loving too. All things I am can do and be through Christ the truth that is in me. God is my health, I can't be sick. God is my strength, unfailing quick. God is my all, I know no fear, since God and love and truth are here. Amen. So, the title of my talk is not about kingdom consciousness, but again, it's related just as everything is. It's all entangled. Talk about quantum entanglement. Everything is sort of connected at a very small level. But I'm going to talk about today the Sermon on the Mount. So nearly 2,000 years ago, on a Galilean hillside, Jesus delivered what would become the most revolutionary ethical blueprint in human history, known as the Sermon on the Mount. To the peasants and fishermen listening, his opening words, "Blessed are," must have sounded shockingly countercultural for the time, in a world ruled by Roman swords and religious legalism. Jesus announced a radical new paradigm where the meek would inherit the earth and the pure in heart see God. For centuries, theologians have debated over whether these teachings were meant for another, maybe future age, or whether they were relevant to the here and now, if they could be lived now. This is where Emmet Fox's brilliant inspiration shines light. Emmet Fox was a 20th century New Thought teacher. In fact, if you got the packet if this is your first time here and you received the packet, you received the golden key from Emmet Fox, which is a very simple yet very powerful idea, and this is something you could practice today if you choose to. Emmet Fox says, if you're having trouble in life, dealing with struggle, whatever it is, stop thinking about the trouble. Think about God. Very simple idea, but very powerful and very effective. It's a very effective metaphysical tool to change your reality. But Fox saw beyond theological debates, and what he reveals is that the Sermon on the Mount is Jesus' ultimate handbook for practical spirituality. He actually says in here that Jesus taught no theology, whatever, only spiritual psychology. Here's the quote. "It'll startle many good people to learn that all the doctrines and theologies of the churches are human inventions built up by their authors out of their own mentalities and foisted upon the Bible from outside." But such is the case. There is absolutely no system of theology or doctrine to be found in the Bible. It is simply not there. Instead, what is found, just as Einstein revealed E equals mc squared to be a hidden equation in physics that sort of underlies physical reality, Fox showed how the Beatitudes in the Sermon on the Mount operate as a kind of spiritual physics. These are immutable laws that we can use to help transform our health, relationships, and prosperity when applied to our life. The poor in spirit do not have to wait for heaven. They enter kingdom consciousness now. The merciful do not earn future rewards. They activate an immediate law of reciprocity. So, Emmet Fox deals with the Sermon on the Mount metaphysically. And by that, he means that there's a surface level to the message. But if you look deeper, if you look at sort of the underlying message of the words, there's actually a more profound spiritual message underneath. He says at the very beginning of the book, the study of the Bible is not unlike the search for diamonds. At first, people found a few diamonds in the yellow clay, and they were delighted with their good fortune, even when they supposed that this was the full extent of what they would find. But then, upon digging deeper, they came upon the blue clay, and to their amazement, they found as many precious stones in a day as they had previously found in a year. And what had formerly seemed like wealth faded into insignificance beside the new riches. So, he recommends, as you read the Bible, you should constantly affirm that divine wisdom is enlightening you. This is the way to get direct inspiration. And following that introduction, he goes on to explore what are known as the Beatitudes from the Sermon on the Mount. And the Beatitudes are sometimes called the blessed bees or blessed ours. And essentially, they're revolutionary declarations that reveal a paradoxical path to spiritual fulfillment. So rather than exalting the powerful or wealthy, they bless the humble, merciful, and pure in heart, promising divine reversal. The meek will inherit the earth, the mourners will be comforted, and the persecuted will find joy. Emmet Fox taught that living the Beatitudes reshapes your mind and thus your reality. It can be summed up in a simple phrase: change your thinking and change your life. So his interpretation of these Beatitudes presents them as practical guidelines for spiritual transformation. He sees them not as religious mandates or dogma, but as universal principles that can help individuals achieve harmony, inner peace, and a deeper connection with the divine. Each beatitude, again, is interpreted metaphysically, emphasizing the power of thought, attitude, and consciousness. So again, like the yellow clay, there's a sort of a surface level message, which is very good, and you can learn a lot from it. But if you look a little bit deeper, there's an even more profound message to each of these beatitudes. I'm not going to go through all of them. There's sort of 8 or sometimes considered to be 9 beatitudes in the Sermon on the Mount. But I'll go through a couple, and then we'll talk about how you can use them in practical application in your life. So the foundation that Jesus starts with is, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." On the surface, this means that we should be humble before God. Okay, that's good. But Fox interprets this as the poor in spirit means humility and openness to God. So not just humbleness or humility, but openness to God. It's the recognition of one's need for spiritual development and the willingness to let go of ego-driven desires or selfish, external desires. The kingdom of heaven in this beatitude represents conscious oneness with divine mind. So poverty of spirit then is releasing ego's illusion of control and embracing the conscious oneness with divine mind. Then there's a transformation. Jesus says, "Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted." And again, the surface meaning of this is very good, right? Comfort for those who are grieving. They will be comforted, right? Good message. But again, there's a deeper message that Fox explores. To Fox, mourning symbolizes letting go of old attachments, ideas, and patterns that no longer serve your spiritual growth. This process can lead to comfort and renewal through divine grace. How many times do we sometimes mourn the loss of old limiting beliefs? Sometimes we have an attachment to things that maybe served us well at a certain point in our life, but no longer serve us now. We have to let go of these attachments, dissolve our old mental patterns, and receive new ones. Then he deals with power. He says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God." So again, on the surface, this message advocates resolving conflicts peacefully. Again, very good message. Excellent. You can also use that in your life. But below the surface, Fox says peacemakers are those who bring harmony into situations through love and understanding. By fostering peace within, starting with peace within, we can radiate peace to the world. Those who foster peace within embody divine qualities and align closely with God. So inner peace precedes outer harmony. You can't give what you don't have, essentially. So the Beatitudes are not rewards for suffering, in Fox's view. They're actually instructions for operating spiritual law. Living these instructions, you can weather storms. They become like a lighthouse in a storm. They're your beacons of light that lead you towards the right path. So how do you become that lighthouse? Often in Unity, we talk about practicing denial and affirmation. And you heard a wonderful example of that when Jan read the daily word today. We'll get to it again before we do our meditation. We'll do another denial and affirmation together. But a similar one to the one we're going to do in a minute might be the denial to cancel limiting beliefs. I refuse to let fear, dogma, or past wounds dim my light. I am not a victim of storms. I am designed to shine through them. Remember, a lighthouse doesn't resist the storm. It doesn't try to fight against the shore. It stays there, it is solid, and it provides its light for anyone that might need guidance in that situation. So here are some ways to practice the Beatitudes in key areas. So for health, we want to align our body and our mind with the divine mind. The Beatitude, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God, represents clear, positive thinking and an unshaken focus on spiritual truth. Metaphysically, a pure heart perceives divine reality without distortion. And actually, Fox actually recommends some rituals and practices you can do. One is in the morning, as you get up, drink a glass of water. Actually, I'm going to do so right now. And as you drink this water, declare, divine life purifies every cell of my body. And you can feel that water going into your body, sustaining you, becoming you. We're something like 80% water, right? For prosperity, you may want to align your finances with your divine gift of creativity. The Beatitude, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled, can be used here. This represents a deep, unwavering desire for spiritual truth and understanding. Those who seek God's presence and principles will find fulfillment and enlightenment. And this includes in the material realm as well. So maybe before you go to work, or before you purchase something, or make some or sell something, make some kind of financial transaction, you may want to say the affirmation, I am aligned with divine supply. My value flows from my connection to God and not external validation. You may want to practice giving a small gift or a tip or something anonymously. By spreading the flow of wealth, you break scarcity consciousness. It's often best to give what you need to receive. That's Florence Scovel Shinn. That's one of the principles that she talks about. For success, it may not always be connected to finances. Your view of success may be different. But most people want to have purpose and impact in what they do. The Beatitude, blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth, is relevant here. Meekness for Fox is not weakness, but spiritual strength rooted in self-control, patience, and faith in God. By aligning with divine will, you can experience true abundance and peace. So some ways to practice this are you can replace what they call, so there's sort of levels of consciousness. Victim thinking is sort of the bottom level, and then the next one is victor consciousness, and then there's vessel consciousness and verity consciousness, where we feel that we're one with all. But if we sort of get stuck in between that victim and victor consciousness, then it limits our growth. We can start to think, as we're sort of rising out of the victim consciousness, how can I change this situation? How can I force this situation to become different? But instead of doing that, maybe think, how can I serve this situation? How can I let go and let God produce the good that I want out of this situation? For happiness, in terms of relationships and our joyfulness and loving relationships with other people, again, the Beatitude, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God, is relevant here. When offended by somebody, you might want to pause and ask yourself, what part of me feels threatened? How can I respond from love instead of fear? A daily practice you could do is name 3 peace victories where you chose kindness instead of fear. Maybe you have a situation in traffic where you might want to start to get road rage, but then instead let it go, let go, let God, and allow the situation to work out for the good. So, in closing, let's this week try and be the lighthouse in the storm. Identify a challenge in your life, whether it's financial stress, conflict, or a health concern, and apply the corresponding Beatitudes. So, for example, again, for finances, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. You can turn this into an affirmation: I hunger for right ideas and not just for money. And then observe the shift in your mentality, in your mental weather, so to speak. And observe in others how they react to your light. Finally, let's affirm, I am not limited by storms. I am blessed because my light burns brightest when others can see darkness. And so it is.
Today is the 7th Beatitude, and that is, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Now, this Beatitude, for me, is the most important and the most revealing and really the most inspiring to me Beatitude of all. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. And yet, it's a funny Beatitude. On the first reading, it sounds very so-so, nothing to get excited about. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. Naturally, it's good and virtuous to be a peacemaker. When you say that, you can't, people don't hardly think twice about it. But then, if you go on reading or studying that Beatitude, it begins to have a lot of questions come up in your mind, and where at first everything seemed peaceful, nice Beatitude, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be sons of God. But you find yourself asking questions. Perhaps peacemakers, you think, well, blessed are the peacemakers. I remember times when I tried to be a peacemaker between 2 friends who were angry with each other, and it ended up that they both turned on me, and I wanted to be a peacemaker. And are peacemakers always sons of God, or aren't peacemakers told to mind their own business sometimes? So you see, we start getting questions like that, and then the more we think of what is a peacemaker, we begin to think about heads of governments. We begin to think about Henry Kissinger, for instance, peacemakers like that. They all claim to be peacemakers, but they mean peace on what they consider to be fair and just terms. But they're really ready to kill and maim and bomb in order to bring about that peace as they understand peace. So is that a peacemaker? You know, because I don't think there ever was a war fought where both sides weren't fighting for peace, you know, and both sides were peacemakers. And are they sons of God? You know, I mean, you start thinking about what started out to be a nice, simple beatitude. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. And so you begin to ask yourself, what is a peacemaker? And then, of course, when you start analyzing the last part, blessed are peacemakers, they shall be called sons of God part, sons of God, I should imagine that a loyal believer in the traditional concept that Jesus is and was the only begotten Son of God, that they'd have trouble with that beatitude if they ever stopped to think about it. Because they'd think, I thought Jesus was the only Son of God. Does this mean that every peacemaker is also a son of God, that there's lots of sons of God? For instance, all those who won the Nobel Peace Prize for their work as peacemakers, they are, blessed are the peacemakers. Are they all sons of God? I thought there was only Jesus. So you see, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God, has more depth to it than people give it credit for. There's some meaning in there that's much deeper than the surface words that people go over so much. I imagine that's why it isn't emphasized so much in traditional religion, because they would have trouble with that sons of God, as if Jesus is saying there's more than one Son of God. If you're a peacemaker, you'll be anybody who is, you see. So let's begin to plumb the depths of this wonderful beatitude. And we'll begin by reminding ourselves again that Jesus is always referring to states of mind in the individual in his teachings. Because mind is cause, outer things are effects, and you work with cause. And so you always look in his teachings for what state of mind. He's always talking about some sort of state of mind in the realm of cause it's set up. And so we look at this beatitude from this viewpoint. And we look at the idea of what is a peacemaker from this idea of what state of mind is that referring to. Now, I think a logical answer would be, to what state of mind is a peacemaker referring to, would mean somebody who makes peace, a peacemaker making peace in himself or herself. One who seeks to make a peaceful state of mind in himself or in herself. Jesus is saying, blessed are those who seek to attain and establish peace of mind, for they shall express God. Or to put it another way, peace of mind, a peaceful mind, inner serenity is the essential condition, Jesus is saying, for expressing the potential Son of God that you are and everyone is. Inner peace, inner serenity, peace of mind is the essential mental condition in order to express in an outward way the potential Son of God that you are and everyone is. Maybe you're beginning to see why this beatitude thrills me, because it gets down to really where it's at. In order to express, it can't be done. You can't express that spiritual dimension in you, the Christ, unless you have that inner serenity, that inner peace of mind. You see, Jesus is a teacher of laws of mind action, because mind is the connecting link between God and man. The connecting link is the mind, and so his teachings have all to do with the mind and states of mind. Mind is the connecting link between the universal mind of God, or kingdom of God, with its perfect or divine ideas. When you say divine ideas, you mean perfect ideas, including the idea of perfect man in God's mind, the Christ, which is the only begotten Son. And so mind is the connecting point between universal mind with these perfect ideas, divine ideas, including the Christ, and man. And so Jesus' teachings are always aimed at how you and I can establish the most perfect conditions of mind in order for the power and the perfection of the kingdom of God, the spiritual dimension, to flow through into expression on this physical dimension, this physical world. And peace of mind is a primary mental condition, an essential mental condition. It can't happen when you're all excited or irritated or emotionally upset. We have to work at establishing that peace of mind. Now, each of us knows this to be true out of our own experience. It is so important to have that inner serenity or peace of mind. When we're calm inside, when we're peaceful inside, we work better. We think better when we're calm and peaceful inside. Who of us hasn't been told or told someone else, now calm down, take it easy, quiet down, and you'll get the job done that's upsetting you so. You can do it, just get calm. We all have said that. And yet we know this principle, that it needs a calm, serene state of mind in order for the potential within us to come through. It's a universal law. It's the way things are. Now, someone might say, well, what has that to do with religion or God, though? Even an atheist will say, calm down, take it easy, you'll get it done better. Well, that's good. Even an atheist will. That's true. This only points out that Jesus taught universal laws, not religious laws. You know, sometimes we think in the Bible that these laws are only meant for church members, that they only work for church members or only work in Christianity. But he taught universal laws. Jesus' teachings are not so much a religion as they are a science. Just like science is universal, and the laws they find and discover in science are universal in Asia and all over. And so these laws of mind and that Jesus talked about in their work are universal. It's a science of fulfilling living is what Christianity really is. And Jesus' teachings really are the science of fulfilling living, or the science of perfect living, or, as Jesus himself said, abundant life. I have come so that you may have abundant life. It's a science. And the science, you fulfill the science of living through understanding and obeying these universal laws of mind action that Jesus taught. Now, when you add to an inner state of being calm or taking it easy, you all know that you have to do that, or you tell other people too, and you know yourself that when you're calm and take it easy, things go better. All right. But when you add to that inner state of being calm or taking it easy, when you add to that an acknowledgement of your oneness with a transcendent source, add to that a realization of your oneness with universal mind, or God, or whatever word you want to use for this reality, this spiritual dimension, when you add that to it, then you provide an even more perfect condition of mind for the power to flow through. See, you're adding an even more perfect condition. Do you understand what I mean by that? Like if there's a room here and there's a room there and there's a door in between, in order for a person to pass from this room to that room, there has to be a condition of the door being open. That has to be the condition, because if the door is closed, you can't. And so I cannot be busy, and I am one with God. And she would affirm that each time she started to feel the symptom. God cannot be dizzy, and I am one with God. I am one with God, and God cannot be dizzy. And little by little, the dizziness would leave more quickly each time until finally she was free of it. And she was telling this friend about that, and then the friend subsequently wrote me. So my friend wrote that, she says, I started to say to myself, God is not lonely. God is a part of all the activity of this city. God is not lonely, and I am one with God. And she started using that, God is not lonely, and I am one with God, so how can I be lonely? Because if God isn't, and I'm one with him, I can't. It's spiritual logic, you know, to the mind and to the heart. And gradually, imperceptibly, things changed until she found herself so occupied and busy and happy that she forgot that she had been lonely. You know, that's what happens in truth so many times. We've got a problem, and it's our whole life and all. And we start using truth on it, and we work ourselves out of it, and everything seems to go so natural and all that, but we forget what the problem was. And if you see me 6 months later and I say, How did you ever make out with that problem at work? Problem at work. Let's see. Oh yes, problem at work. It's all over, and you've almost forgotten about the problem because you work out of it. You change. You see, you change, and you're so close to yourself that you don't notice the change. These 5 words are spiritual dynamite, really. I am one with God. Keep them handy in your spiritual armory. Armory, we usually think of guns and weapons and that, but a spiritual armory is a place where you keep the spiritual weapons to overcome these threatening appearances of the world, because it's a tough world out there. There's some tough, threatening forces of political influence and influence of what they'll say and influence of it's rough out there. You all know that, and you need a weapon to fight it. And that's what truth is, a weapon. And we as truth students have an armory back here of truth weapons, different affirmations, meditation, these many different things, and of one of a weapon that you'll find very good is those 5 words, I am one with God. God cannot be discouraged. When you're discouraged about something, say to yourself, God cannot be discouraged, and I am one with God. God cannot be frantic or poor or unhappy or confused, or God cannot be unfairly treated, and I am one with God. And you find that gets you out of that psychological state that I am unfairly treated. Maybe you are in the outer. I'm not saying you're not, but as long as you keep thinking about it, you're going to be treated unfairly even more. You're going to attract worse things to you. The thing is to cure it in you. And so God cannot be unfairly treated, and I am one with God, or whatever. Whatever that state is. It's a little thing that'll help to keep you calm, because you see, peace of mind or serene mind is so important to doing things right, and it's so easily upset by outside things. And so when you say, I am one with God, it helps to make you serene. Now, this is not only for big things. I almost hesitate to tell you this because it seems like such a little thing, but maybe it'll be helpful in your home. I'm working with this idea during the week or yesterday on I am one with God to keep you serene. And I was making some a liquid power drink, I call it, for my wife Elizabeth, in which you have to put an egg. And I dropped the egg on the floor.
Did I answer? Oh, the prayer of protection. I wrote the prayer of protection when we went into World War II. And they asked me to write a pamphlet, which Sandra still has. I think it's called His Protecting Presence or something, maybe Spirit, I don't know. They still have it, and they still use it. But, you see, we weren't quite in the war yet, I don't think. But Europe had been in flames for a couple of years. And they said, write this pamphlet, so I did. And on the back page, they wanted prayers, affirmative prayers, because we were very, very affirmative prayerish then. Never anything else but an affirmation. And the only affirmation we had at that time was, yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. And one of the girls who was reading my manuscript said, Jim, I think if I were a soldier being shot at, or if I was a woman and they were dropping a bomb on me, I wouldn't want to feel I was walking through the valley of the shadow of death. Can't you do better than that? And I said, good heavens, you want me to do better than the 24th Psalm? You've got to be crazy. It's 23rd, isn't it? But I had written a prayer, a protection prayer, for our Saturday at Christmas always has a very special service that we prepare. And I had prepared the service that year, and I had written a protection prayer to put in it because the world was in flames. But the prayer was a rhymed 4-line verse. And I hadn't really liked it much because I thought I'd forced it a little to get it to rhyme. But when the girl said that to me, that verse was probably floating around there in the back of my brain, and I brought it up, changed Christ to God because it was Christ, because it was a Christmas prayer when I wrote it, took the rhymes off. I didn't want rhymes. I felt that does something to it that I don't like, and added a 5th line, and that's the way the prayer of protection came into existence.
Here's another prayer. Did you write it? It was, well, it's
I doubt
sort
it.
of like a prayer. It says,
No.
Humanity is my church. Loving my neighbor as myself is my daily worship. It's unity, isn't it? I mean,
It's fine.
that one comes from unity, doesn't it?
I don't have any idea. I've heard it, but I don't know. I don't know where most prayers come from. And our prayers, I don't know which are ours or which
All
are
right.
somebody else's.
The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. Amen. Thank you. That prayer was written during a tumultuous time in the world stage, right towards the beginning of World War II. James Dillett Freeman was called upon to write an affirmative prayer that would help people who were struggling with those times, people who might have been drafted. And he recalled that I think it's the 23rd Psalm, it says, "Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil." And somebody says to him, "Well, can't you do better than that?" And he says, "Well, you think I could do better than the 23rd Psalm?" But so he wrote this, and it ended up going to the moon with Buzz Aldrin. He didn't even know anything about unity, he just carried it with him. And it became a very powerful prayer. Here's another very powerful affirmative prayer that I talked about last week. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. We'll review a little bit more what we talked about last week about what the meaning of this beatitude. But first I want to tell another story. And it's another true story. And I think this story will resonate with us again in these times when our world feels heavy with tension and headlines speak of conflict and nations divided and our hearts ache for resolution. In 1955, a woman named Jill Jackson Miller, she was an actor, songwriter, and author. She sat down and wrote a simple song that would become a global anthem for peace. And you probably know it. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth, the peace that was meant to be. With God as creator, family all are we. Let us walk with each other in perfect harmony. Let peace begin with me. Let this be the moment now. With every breath I take, let this be my joyous vow, to take each moment and live each moment in peace eternally. Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with me. Good. I'd like you to actually turn around right now and look at the back wall. And it says, "Peace on earth, let it begin with me." Today we sing that song at the end of every service. I wasn't actually planning on singing the whole thing, but the Spirit took me. Let's just start with the whole song. Why not? But Jill's life, again, Jill Jackson Miller, the author of the song, was not always peaceful. She had been orphaned as a child, and she rose to success in Hollywood and had a husband who helped her in her career. But at a certain point, she divorced from her husband, and at the same time, her acting career began to flounder. It was at this time that she experienced a period of personal difficulty that led her even to become suicidal. And she later spoke about how during this time, she experienced what she described as an eternal moment of truth, where she knew unconditional love, which God is. This transformative experience led her to realize that she was, quote, totally loved and totally accepted and here for a purpose, developing her unique philosophy of peace that inspired her most famous work. In her darkest moments, she discovered the power of inner peace through prayer and spiritual practice. She realized that peace was not something to demand from the world, but something to cultivate within. After this, she embarked on a songwriting career with her new husband, Cy Miller, and today she's better known for songwriting than she is for acting. What a blessing. So her song still reminds us that peace is not just the absence of war or conflict, it's a presence, a divine harmony that starts in our hearts. As Mark recalls in his gospel in chapter 4, there was a storm brewing, and Jesus said to the storm, "Peace, be still," and calm the storm. And we can do that as well, and even greater things, as Jesus said. So let's talk about a little bit of the metaphysics of the Beatitude that we talked about last time. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Now, according to Emmet Fox, who I talked about, a peacemaker is anyone who spreads the awareness of divine truth. So anyone who spreads the awareness of divine truth has the right to call themselves a peacemaker. Similarly, Charles Fillmore, co-founder of Unity, wrote, "The peacemakers spoken of in this beatitude are those who make or bring about this true peace or serenity in their own souls. For it is they who surmount limitation and become actually, and not merely potentially, the children of God." So again, peace is not passive, it's an active alignment with God's presence. When Jesus said, "My peace I give you," as John recounted in chapter 14, he was offering a deep, abiding serenity that comes from knowing that we are one with God. Yet so often we let anxiety, resentment, or fear disrupt our peace. Fillmore warned that lasting peace requires more than surface-level harmony. It demands the dismantling of inner divisions, pride, greed, and separation, so that God's order can reign. Much like our day, the Fillmores lived through a time of turmoil and war. Writing in 1914, as the European rulers' fears were leading up to what we now know as World War I, Unity magazine received letters calling for them to pray for peace. And Fillmore responded to that this way: "The conflict of nations in Europe is stirring the sympathetic hearts of our people of America. And there's a widespread desire to do something to bring about peace. Our readers are pouring in upon us plans and suggestions for prayers, petitions, and treatments, asking and even commanding in the name of Christ, the restoration of the principles for which the Christian religion stands. We are in complete sympathy with this humane and natural desire for all sane people, of all sane people, for a universal peace the world round. A peace that can never be broken by the ambition of any nation. But there's a but. It says, this enduring peace is sure to be established when people see the insanity of war. But it will never be entered into by the whole world until certain deep-seated errors are eradicated from human thought. So we see much yet to be done before peace is declared. The nations have not asked for peace. When they have proved futile their own efforts to bring about lasting peace, our prayers and words of peace will find a resting place in their land. So again, Fillmore says, but before this peace is established, all the states of mind that bring about war must be broken up. So what does he say? What is peace? What does he think peace is? In the revealing word, Fillmore says, peace is the harmony and tranquility derived from awareness of the Christ consciousness. And this is the practical application. Steadfast affirmations of peace will harmonize the whole body structure and open the way to attainment of health conditions in mind and body and nation and world. So maybe we're asking the wrong question when we seek peace outside of ourselves without knowing it within. As divine beings, we already have perfect peace within us. We don't need to create it, we just need to claim it. The beauty and simplicity of this idea is again perfectly expressed on our back wall and in the song, "Let there be peace on earth, and let it begin with" who? Other nations? You know, all these groups out here that are fighting each other, begin with them? Is that where peace is going to begin? No, with me, right? Internally. So how do we embody this peace? Traditionally in Unity, we talk about denials and affirmations, but I'd like to talk about it today in more non-resistant terms as release and embrace. The release, which we're all going to say in a minute, is, I now release all fear, anxiety, and unrest, surrendering every burden to God's perfect peace. So whenever worry arises, we can pause and breathe, maybe say an affirmation, or say, "Peace, be still," just as Jesus did to calm the storm. The next one's kind of hard. Forgive. That's tough. Forgive others, forgive yourself, and forgive the past. It's really hard to forgive others. Sometimes it's even harder to forgive ourselves. Sometimes that's the hardest to forgive. And release the past. Release past hurts. As the daily word for today talked about, resentment is a block to peace. Surrender control. As the verse in Isaiah 66:12 says, I will extend peace like a river. Metaphysically, this means if you think about a river, if you think about water, we should be like water. What does water do? It fills in all the spaces and the cracks in between the rocks. It fills all the pores and the minerals there. But does it stop there? No, it keeps flowing. It never stops flowing. It just keeps going. Is this an effort that it makes? Is this a resistance that it puts up? No, it's non-resistant. It just flows. So we talk about let go and let God, right? Practice Emmet Fox's golden key. And I think this is one of the best things that I've taken out of Unity that I use in my life. And if you're new, you got this in the welcome packet. This is The Golden Key by Emmet Fox. You don't even need to read the whole thing. You need to read this one sentence, and I'm always just sort of pulling this out. I just got another one because they get crumpled and wrinkled and stuff in my pockets. But this one sentence in italics here on page 8. Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. That's it. Simple as that. But very, very powerful. Very powerful tool. In fact, I have a little bit of testimonial from a couple weeks ago. A family member was going through a health challenge, and I used these principles. And long story short, we're able to get a good outcome out of it, good health outcome. So, the next step is embrace or affirm. And our affirmation, our embrace today is, I am a peacemaker filled with divine serenity, and I reflect God's love and harmony in all I do. You might want to start your day with a declaration similar to that, with an affirmation. It could be just something as simple as, I am a peacemaker, I am blessed, I am a child of God, based on that beatitude from the Sermon on the Mount. In conflicts, choose understanding over reaction. See the divine in others. How many times do we hear something, our heart rate starts racing and things like that? And then sometimes our reaction ends up making things worse, right? Ends up compounding things. I know that's been the case in my life from time to time. And here's one that I find a lot of hope in. Radiate calmness. When you become a person that exudes peace, when you become a person that others see peace in, that peace influences other people. They see that example, and they want to live that way too. So I think if there's hope for our tumultuous world, it's that we become peacemakers by radiating calm, joyful energy that people see and think, I want some of that. I want some of what they got. That looks pretty good. So to conclude, peace isn't just for quiet moments. It's for the chaos. It's for the disagreements. It's for the storms of life. When we anchor in God's peace, we become healers in a fractured world. As Jill's song, which again we'll sing at the end, and as it says on the back wall, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. So let us go forth as true peacemakers, as true children of God, bringing God's light wherever we go. Amen.
You have to put an egg, and I dropped the egg on the floor. And, immediately, that dumb thing, or, I said, I am one with God. I didn't get upset at all. I said to Betty, I dropped an egg on the floor, even so, the point is that even on little things, I am one with God. God cannot get upset. It'd be almost, it would be almost sacrilegious to say, I am one with God when you're upset. So it's a good thing to use at all times. They're the key to the peace of mind that Jesus taught, and the peace of mind that results in the potential Son of God that you are to express in increasingly greater degree. And that's expressing increasingly, even when you don't get upset over dropping an egg or spilling the yogurt or something like that. That's increasingly greater degree of expressing the potential in you. That's how we grow. And so in little things or big things, in the midst of the blizzard we had this past winter, you're snowbound in your house, and you forgot you skipped going to the store that week, and your refrigerator isn't exactly full. And of course you're glued to the TV, and the TV makes it a point to go around the city looking for and finding the worst things, the people who are starving, the people who are in the worst possible. They don't look for the good. The people that are happy there, and enjoying this, they wouldn't show pictures of that. My goodness, who wants to see that? But, and so you're looking at all these miserable people. There are the people in snowdrifts, hanging out of cars, and your refrigerator is empty and all that. And all these are a temptation by outer stimuli. They're really hypnotizing you, suggesting that you go to pieces, that you crawl with fear inside. What am I going to do? I'm going to be one of those pretty soon if this refrigerator, might last for 3 years, this blizzard or something. But then what if you're a truth student, or what if you dig back in your armory and you smile and you say, I am one with God? How can you get upset? How can you get scared about what's going to happen when you say, I am one with God? And if it doesn't happen the first time, say it a couple of times. I am one with God. And a conversation we had, that she stood in the window of her home on Unity Ridge there, and she watched a tornado coming toward her house over that expanse of field. Her house sits on a kind of a ridge like that. They call it Unity Ridge, and below there's fields. And she watched this tornado come toward her house, and May stood there and calmly knew her oneness with God in her own way. I am one with God. I don't know whether she said those 5 words, but that was the feeling. She said, I am one with God. And suddenly, she told me, this dangling, whipping end of the funnel lifted off of the ground, and it settled down again for just a few yards in an uninhabited patch of woods, and then it lifted and dissolved. The tornado itself, this outer thing, while she just knew that I am one with God. Blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are those who, fortunate or enjoying happiness, because that's what the word blessed means, are those who seek to attain and maintain this peace of mind that is grounded on the truth that I am one with God. For they shall be called sons of God. They shall express power. They shall express perfection, or shall express what needs to be done in some miraculous ways, some simple ways and miraculous ways. Well, now, I'd like to dwell on that last part for a moment. They shall be called sons of God. They shall be called sons of God. It's still difficult for many of us to call ourselves a son of God. And this is something that it's programmed in us, you see, and so we have to work at getting it out, because it's difficult to call I am a son of God. We'll settle for a child of God. And I find it even myself, when I write an idea. And that's God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, you see. And we call that the Christ. The Christ in you, your hope of glory, as Paul put it. The living Christ is a healing presence within me, making me whole and well. This is the Silent Unity healing statement for the month of March. The living Christ is a healing presence within me, making me whole and well. I've been working even harder with those more often with those statements this month, and as you work with them, there's a sort of a lilt to them. The living Christ is a healing presence. They're through. As I say, it's hard to define, but there's a peace, there's a confidence, there's a calmness, there's a mastery, there's a power, and you go ahead and make them, and you never know the results, really, of any action you take, but you feel that it must have been right. Well, this is all, blessed are the peacemakers. You're getting a peace of mind. Your peace of mind comes first, and then you will express the other. Perhaps it's just where I am in this classroom of spiritual understanding and unfoldment, but at this point I feel that the whole sum and substance of spiritual living, the one goal toward which to work, is to develop the mastery to keep serene, peaceful, calm, undisturbed under all circumstances. For only then can the light of understanding shine into your mind and my mind to reveal that which needs to be done. Because the moment you get upset for any reason, don't make any difference if it's a good reason, the moment you get upset for any reason, you blow it. You blow it again. You blow your spirituality. You blow your spiritual living. And so this is the thing to get that condition of mind, a peaceful condition of mind. Affirmation that I'm going to use that came to me as I was making these notes was, I am calm, cool, composed, and collected at all times and under all circumstances. I am calm, cool, composed, and collected at all times and under all circumstances, even when I pronounce it wrong. You hear me teach so often about not responding emotionally to outer conditions or people or events that tempt you to respond emotionally. Well, this is just another way of saying keep your peace of mind. For only under those conditions, peace of mind conditions, can God come through to do what you so want and need for him to do and what he so wants to do for and through you. Now, one closing thought. When any individual works at establishing this inner serenity, this inner peace, peace of mind based on the realization of oneness with God, there's a way in which a vibration goes out from such a person to bring peace to those in his or her presence. They indeed, when you work at it this way, a peace of mind for yourself, a peacemaker is, in time of vibration or something goes out and you become, in an outer sense, a peacemaker. So instead of trying to talk common sense to, say, two friends of yours who are angry with each other and can't seem to get along, and you can see the points of both of them, and you know the answer, and you just ought to talk common sense to them, but you'll find that the answer has to come from within them, and they'll only turn on you. And so the next time, even though you can see that it's a silly argument and how it could be resolved, or that one should come to their senses or something, try instead just attaining a state of peace of mind, of using I am one with God while they're there and while you're in their presence. And this sends out something and is better for being a peacemaker in the outer than anything else. After all, peace has to come from within them, because apologies, compromises, promises count for nothing unless they come out of a bubbling up of peace from within the heart and the mind of those concerned. And your inner peace is more powerful in bringing this about, in bringing that peace from within them about, than any good, logical, common sense words you could say. Well, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called sons of God. And this beatitude means what? It means keep yourself established in an inner peace of mind, inner serenity, based on these 5 mystical, magical, miracle-working words. I am one with God. I am one with God. God bless you.